You're listening to Served Up, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful conversations. I'm your host, Bridget Albert, also known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with decades of experience. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry. Hey, y'all, it's Bridget here. I'm really excited to introduce to you my friend, Nate Gana. Nate's Instagram blew up as one of the very first Instagrams dedicated to collecting whiskey. He has more followers than just about anybody in the world of whiskey. And he is more than just about bottle pics. Let me tell you, he is about curating the ultimate destination for collectors and whiskey lovers who really crave curated luxury, investment insights, and vibrant stories behind every dram. So sit back, relax, grab yourself your favorite glass of whiskey, and enjoy the show. Nate, welcome to Served Up. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. It's about damn time.
I missed you so much. Oh my God. And at least I got to see you on the screen. I know I couldn't be with you in Kentucky, but this is amazing to actually hang out with you. And I know we're going to hang out in Chicago next time. So yay.
Absolutely. Can you tell our listeners about yourself? Where are you from? What did your early years look like? And were you always interested in the beverage hospitality industry? Or did you think, growing up, I'm going to be a doctor or a firefighter or an actor? What was your initial thoughts? And then how did you evolve?
I'm actually laughing my head off because no one's ever asked me that on a podcast. I get it asked all the time. And there's like very quick answers on it. But then like the actual hilarious answer is, this was a total hobby out of nothing. I was a complete bum coming out of high school, and I was really lost in terms of what I was going to do. I just was not motivated by anything. And then a couple of things happened in my life. I'll start with this. When I was going to college, my mom and I used to have this ritual. Every time I'd come home, we'd go to the duty free and we'd collect, we'd buy $100 bottle, no more, no less. And we would just sit on them because they looked pretty. They looked really nice and they looked cool. And it was like, okay, this is a fun hobby. And we had some really cool things on our shelves and just, nothing crazy. But back then spirits wasn't what it is now. And so there were some cool things on the shelf. I wasn't really motivated, fast forwarding. I wasn't really motivated through high school, college. And then I actually got flesh eating disease from kickboxing.
Wait, stop right there. What the fuck? Okay, so flesh eating disease. Yeah. What is that? And how do you get it? You said from kickball.
Kickboxing. So I was a goalie for my college in ice hockey. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. And so obviously the thing you do when you grow up is you play hockey. So I played my whole life, and then I played for my college, UBC. And at the same time I was kickboxing. And when you kickbox, you hit with your elbow and you block with your elbow. And I woke up with a pain the size of a quarter on my elbow on December 1st, 2006. And at 3 p.m., my elbow was the size of a tennis ball. At 8 p.m., my elbow was the size of a football. And then 2 days later, my left arm was larger than my left leg. And they were going to amputate my arm. And somehow they figured out what it was. And so at the time it was called MRSA, MRSA, which at the time they didn't really know what it was. It was a new disease. And so they had mistaken my cellulitis, which was a severe cellulitis case, for bursitis. And so the medication that they were feeding me wasn't strong enough, and my antibodies were getting killed. And so the bad, sort of antibodies, or I don't even know what those are called, but basically my body was reacting and the medication was fueling the disease. And so my arm wasn't getting healed. And so then I was basically on my deathbed for like a month. And then My elbow was kind of a mess for like 8 months, but 3 hours prior to amputating my left arm, they figured out what it was, and they managed to save my arm and eventually cure me. And that kind of got me, a little motivated to do a lot more with my life. And I graduated college in the 7-year plan, and went out into a startup world, and was a lot more motivated because I felt like, wow, you get one life, and I almost had it taken from me. And so I kind of just developed a different mentality about how I work and how hard I work. And then basically I started in a startup, and we were with Microsoft in this startup. And here's the thing. I love being from Canada. However, what you see is marketing budgets are very apparently drastically different between the two countries. So when the US goes into a recession, they are the first, or when there's a global recession, the US are the first group of people to pull themselves out. And I noticed this throughout what we were doing in the startup. When I say that, I'll fast forward here to 2015. I had this love for spirits, and someone came to the house and said, I'm looking at your bottles and I love these. I'll give you $1,200 for this one bottle. And I thought to myself, whoa, like, wow, okay, I didn't see that coming. And so I said, yeah, sure, take it. And then I had a $500 bottle there from some sort of occasion. And the guy came over 3 months later and he said, wow, that's a really nice bottle. I'll give you $3,000 for it. And so I was like, wow, okay, this is really cool. Obviously there's something here. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, wait a minute. If I'm agreeing to it on the first go, what are they selling it for? Or what's it really worth? And so then I started digging and I started looking into Scotch, and at the time it was all Scotch. And so I created an Instagram account. I essentially wasn't active on it, so I shut it down. And then I just decided, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'll restart it. I'll do it correctly. And I restarted it in 2015, and I had 100 followers, and nobody believed in me at all. And, it was kind of one of those things where I was like in my parents' basement by myself, really just had nobody that believed in it. My ex didn't believe in it. Nobody believed in it except my dad. And, my mom's been very supportive and very amazing. But at the time, it was like, holy smokes, we're running on fumes here. And I was thinking to myself, I had 100 followers. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I had 1,000 followers by like December of 2015 and I got some free bottles? That was what I was thinking about so badly. And so circling back to what I was talking about earlier about the marketing was the fact that when you have a company in Canada that is going to give you a sample bottle, they'll usually, or back in the day, they would tend to give you a 50 ml bottle of the sample. And whereas in the US, they would give you 2 full-size bottles. And that's when it became very apparent to me that the marketing was in the US for this in a big, big way. So we live so close to the US border in Vancouver that I would drive down a couple times a week and go and pick up the packages of whiskey that I had and take all the photos of everything. And then I would literally take the pictures and post them to Instagram. And that's how I wound up having, 10,000 followers by December 2015 instead of 1,000.
Wow.
And so I realized, okay, the marketing dollars are there in the US. So 2016 comes around. I go to this event in New York. The girl thinks I'm from New York because I'm posting while I'm working my old startup job. And she's like, oh, no, sorry, I didn't mean to invite you. I didn't know you weren't from New York. I said, well, I'll fly to the event. And she was like, are you serious? So I booked my ex and I at the time. We went to New York. We had this amazing thing. And then, I still wasn't making money at that point in time. And then finally, I just realized I have to stick with this. I've got a huge platform at this time. I've got 50,000 followers, but nobody's paying Instagrammers at the time. And then finally in late 2016, I got a contract, and it's comedic to think about now, but I got paid $500 for 10 photos as a pilot project for Diageo, which was hilarious. And then, in 2017, I got a big break. And while I was literally living in my parents' basement, Glenlivet, I'll never forget it. Shout out to Taryn. She was my fairy godmother. She gave me a big contract with Glenlivet and Pernod in 2017 for a year-long project of doing social media posts, and that kind of changed everything. So that's kind of my roundabout of how I got into this. But yeah.
That's amazing. I think you were really one of the first to break that ceiling, of being a true influencer on social media, right? On all the
It
platforms.
was wild. It was wild at the time, and I think I thank the platform so much every day for what we have. But it is very different now. At the time, there might have been 50 to 60 of us that were posting about whiskey, and we were like a niche little community. And now I'd probably say there's 60 to 70,000 accounts at the very least.
Yeah.
So it's tough to keep up. And a lot of people said you've been on top of this game for forever. How do you do it? But to be completely honest, I just saw the writing on the wall that Instagram was coming to an end in a lot of ways with how the platform was going. And I said, this is not enough to support me full time forever. I'm going to have to expand. And so that's how the expansion of other things came.
Let's talk about those other things. What did that help you branch out into?
Yeah. So my first big break was really cool. I was doing private tastings at the time. I still do, obviously, but like at the time I was just starting them, and I was bringing things. The coolest part was I was in Vancouver at the time, and a lot of clients were really cool because they would say, yeah, we give it a shot. Let's try. And it would always end up being an amazing tasting. But the one thing that I had the ability to do was bring bottles that weren't coming to Canada. And so I was able to get certain bourbons and ryes and certain different things, even in the Scotch world, that weren't coming. Actually, even Japanese whiskey was a big thing. So I was bringing bottles that people couldn't try, and they were like, wow, we just had the coolest thing ever. And I've only ever seen it when I've been to Japan or when I've been to California or whatever. And so that kind of led into this whole thing. So I was doing a lot of tastings, and then a guy called me and he said, hey, this guy wants to do his 50th birthday. It wound up being this amazing birthday bash with the most incredible bottles, which you know well about. Hakushu 18, Yamazaki 18, Hibiki 21, Hibiki 17, Nika 17. It was just like the craziest lineup ever. Fast forward on that, this guy calls me from the party. He goes, hey, I have this rabbi that wants to do this thing. He wants to talk to you. So I was like, okay, I don't know what a rabbi is going to do for me in whiskey, but let's find out. So I speak to this rabbi, and he said that there was a gentleman that expatriated after selling his company for $500 million in the tech space he expatriated to Israel. And he said the Jewish community was left with $300,000 of bottles that he donated to 4 different organizations. And one of the organizations would like for you to host the evening. So I thought, this is such an amazing opportunity. Let's do it. I did that, and the bottles were just like mind blowing. And, so I basically did that, and I posted the placemat of the bottles to my Instagram. And like 30 minutes later, I got this message from this woman and was like, wow, this is the most amazing placemat I've ever seen. Would you be interested in writing for us? And I was like, sure. Who's us? And it wound up being Forbes.
That's crazy.
Oh, that was the crazy break.
So so serendipitous, right?
Carla Lindahow?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, Carla is the greatest. She set me on a path where it was like, whoa, I got this Forbes article. Now everything's kind of like just full steam ahead after that. And so that was probably a pretty big point in my life in terms of like where we got all this start to do everything. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's definitely neat.
So you're doing everything from writing to tasting to social. And then I also know that you judge, spirit competitions. When did that come into play?
Yeah, so it was literally 2019 was my first go with San Francisco, which was such an amazing opportunity. And then, obviously 2020, we were about to do it again. And, it was the weekend of COVID, blah, blah, blah. But the even funnier thing is Ray Isle, who is an amazing writer for food and wine. I was introduced to him in 2018 in Napa, and we hadn't spoken since that time. And in August, I believe, of COVID, I said, I should write again. And so I just sent him a random text, and I was like, hey man, would love to catch up with you. so we got on a call and he said, have you ever written before? I said, yeah, I wrote for Forbes. It was a really cool article about what to collect. And he said, okay, I'll read the article. I'll call you back 2 weeks later. I was like, great. I get a call 10 minutes later and he's like, are you telling me that this, certain bottle of mine is worth $6,000? And I was like, absolutely, at minimum. And so he said, you're hired. So he turns out that Ray is, a writer from the 2000s. And back then, these things weren't worth much. So, you gift the bottle to the writer so you can write about them. This guy has an outrageous collection of bottles that I've never even seen before. Like he has Macallan 30, he has Springbank 12 from the early 2000s that was for a grocery store, like things you'd never even imagine. And he's a wine writer, so I can't even imagine the wines this guy gets. But long story short, he gave me the job for Food and Wine to start writing for them. And every one of my articles went super viral. After that, I was put on as a panelist for Aspen Food and Wine for 2022 and 2023, Charleston Food and Wine for 2024. So I started to expand the business outside of just what we were doing and started to look at other things and other events and stuff like that. And so that's how we kind of grew. But, I got to say, Carla was probably the tipping point, at least having that Forbes article I could have as a base, which was so neat.
It's amazing.
Well, I got to meet you, and I don't know if you do remember this or not, but like I was super, super like in awe of you when I met you because it was 2018 and we were in the lunchroom at San Francisco.
I remember.
Or 2019.
I remember meeting you. I was really excited to meet you as well. So I remember that moment. Yeah, I do.
Oh yeah. It was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like I shouldn't even be in the room. And the funniest part was like Amanda was introducing everybody as to like who the judges were. And she was like, this is Nate Gana. And nobody said anything. And then she's like, also known as Single Malt Daily. And everybody was like, ooh. It's like, yes. Okay.
Oh, awesome. I knew who you were. Yeah. That was so quite a
funny
moment. And then I got to meet you again at the International Wine and Spirit Competition.
Yes, which was such an interesting, amazing thing to have had for a year. Basically, I had it just to kind of bring it to America and to see what could be done in that space. And it was fantastic. I think different people, different things, certain business propositions didn't work out. And that's how business works. Honestly, it's not as if everything's going to be rosy all the time. I'm still obviously very close with Hannah, who runs the competition, which is amazing. But, I think that there's something to be said about having just the honor of even bringing something like that to the US was really cool. I think that competitions are in a really, really weird place right now, if I'm just being very honest. They're kind of a dime a dozen. Everybody's starting one. And, I didn't catch the writing on the wall fast enough in that. But on the same token, we still wound up doing very, very well with it in year one. And so it was worth it to do it for sure. But having said that, I think that moving forward, competitions are really, they shouldn't be allowed to just, create competitions out of thin air, which is what they've done. And, I know that brands had marketing budgets that were just allocated to putting their bottles into competitions, and that's kind of like, oh man, you kind of defeated the purpose of this. A gold medal doesn't mean anything anymore. The points don't mean anything, unfortunately. And then I started seeing that, judges were getting into like, there's some judges that I love for sure, but there's also judges that I'm like, I have never heard of a thing about you. And, it's a weird space right now, right? Then random people create random competitions and so on and so forth. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. So
I agree with you. And, and as a judge, like I get asked to judge quite a few. And even this year, I'm in like 5 of them this year, but I'm super picky about the ones that I say yes to. And then the ones that I turn down, which I turn down a lot of them. So
you must turn down a ton.
But I just, I think this year I'm doing like, I think it's 5 total, but I make sure that I feel like they're worth doing, right? For the brands themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like the consideration is being taken. So if they do get a goal that actually means something, right?
That's the thing, and like, I think there's a lost art of judging, like with people like you, I think that the reason IWSC is so great is because the prestige of who you're judging with is just another level,
Yeah.
And so that's where I really love the competition. But I mean, to each their own. It's a business world out there first, right? And that's that. And I wish everybody luck in every space that they're a part of.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what are you doing today? Like, what's your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so that's actually a really cool question. I say this because I started something completely new out of thin air, and I didn't have any intention of doing this, but it's going to end up being, I think, a really, really successful venture. 6 months ago, Diageo came to me and said, we love working with you, but obviously budgets are a lot different now with how you're, there's no more like social, right? Like social is kind of really, really dead for brands. And they said, we love to work with you, but we don't really have that option right now. What if we were to offer you an opportunity to bring your private clients to Scotland and do a really cool tour of all of our distilleries, with super exclusive access? And honestly, I was kind of like, thanks, but it'll never happen, and so I was like, thanks, but no thanks. And, in my mind anyway, I said, yeah, I'll take it under consideration. Sure. Whatever. 12 hours later, a client of mine said, hey, do you want to take us to Scotland? And I couldn't, there's no way you could script this. And so I said, okay, like, what does that look like? I said, well, we, do our retreat every year for our organization. And we'd like to have someone that knows Scotland take us versus, just us going by ourselves. The long story short, we just came back from the most exceptionally magical experience in the world with regards to Scotch whiskey. We were in Scotland for a week with all the Diageo distilleries, and they hosted us at the most incredible venues, distilleries. The dinners were just top notch, but it was something so elite and exclusive that I was very fortunate to be able to be the guy that had that. And as we were walking through Glasgow, my client and I were talking, and all of a sudden a light switch went on that I have this full blown business for my clientele of luxury collectors and drinkers that would want to go and do these trips. So started a full blown travel company for Scotland and Ireland, Nashville and Kentucky, and Mexico.
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been really cool because I've had like 6 inquiries since the last, since 14, as of 14 days ago, I've had 6 inquiries on this. And the thing is that like, I do realize that because if everything's kind of come, it's been crazy. I've had so much money thrown at me to start this thing, and then I've had partnerships and strategic partnerships, and then a cigar sponsor came on, and it's just been like a little overwhelming to kind of handle everything just in a day-to-day basis. And so I've managed to navigate this pretty well, but the interesting part is I never thought of this being anything as of 2 weeks ago, and now it's my full-blown life. And this is kind of going to be a thing where we do these really cool trips across the distilleries around the world, and the whole goal would be to have multiple me's around the US and Scotland being able to do these trips for people that want exclusive access. Because what I realized was that right now we're in a really bleak part of the industry and the time, as you know. You see things closing down every day, but the other half is there's still a shitload of money out there, and there's people that want to pay for experiences. And so this kind of bridges that gap for everybody. My clients had an amazing time. They spent, I want to say, north of $70,000 over 6 days on bottles. And there's only,
it's crazy on bottles, folks, on bottles. Wow.
They got
say these
access,
big things like they're not big things, Nate. It's driving me crazy. 70 grand on bottles. Holy
it was
shit.
Insane. Yeah, it was nuts. And like the guys loved it, but I think Diageo really loved it because they thought, okay, this is like such a hit. But the thing that I realized a couple of things through this, and I started to just capitalize on those things. And I just thought, okay, this is a great market to go after. And so that's what we're doing full time now. It's kind of crazy.
Wonderful. So you're really looking for that collector then.
No, it's actually really funny that you say that. I'm really happy you say that. I market it to my collectors, but the interesting thing is those collectors, the people that are really, genuinely wealthy have so many hobbies. And they may not know whiskey the way you and I know whiskey, but they like whiskey. And they're so much smarter than I could ever be. And they just want to dabble in certain things. And it's really cool because I learned so much more from these guys when I spend time with them than they would ever learn from me, and it's a win-win in that sense because I have one specialty and it's spirits. And so I get to take them on this exclusive adventure that they would normally never get to do. But there are people out there that want to pay for this that are not in the world of whiskey. They want to pay for experiences. And then in turn, it makes them whiskey fans, which is even cooler because there was probably 3 guys on the trip that were like, oh, I've got a pretty good verse in what I like. And it was awesome to see. And then you'd see the guys that were like, man, I don't own a single bottle. And by the time I remember this one aha moment for this one guy, he was like, this is the greatest whiskey I've ever had. And it was a Lagavulin 29, which is 3,000 pounds for the bottle. And he turned around and bought 4 bottles,
Wow. Wow.
and
Wow.
it's
Wow.
like, that's the thing is that I think the aha moment is so enlightening and so much fun in spirits because then you're like, oh my God, the first instinct is you have to try this. You have to try how good this is. It's not to say like mine is better than yours. It's to say like, you've got to really like, try what I have. And I think that's what I love. Whiskey is friendly, wine is snobby. I live by that rule.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And people can actually explore it and, challenge their taste buds, right? On these experiences that you're creating to see like, okay, well, typically I like this. And then they might discover like, no, I actually like this, and this, and this. Oh my God, I didn't even know because I didn't have access, right?
No idea.
To trying these things in this type of a setting that must be very educating as well and learning as we go along.
It's so cool because the woman that runs Port Ellen, Tracy, she's just a wealth of knowledge, but she's like a science master's, I want to say, like in some sort of chemical engineering or something. And she just understands what she has at her disposal, which is probably one of the greatest distilleries of all time. And she nerds out so hard with my clients, and my clients then nerd out. And they're like, holy shit, this is so crazy to see. But like the other half is that I was the first non-Diageo employee to go to these distilleries and do these tours, which kind of put me in a special light because that gives you exclusive access. And that's kind of what we're building this whole business on.
I think it also gives you a lot of credibility because you're not just there to sing their song, you have other experiences, right?
100%.
That you can bring to the table. You've earned your stripes.
I love that you say that, and that means so much. And it was like, okay, well, if we've done this, and it's really funny you say that because my accountant is one of my best friends, and she was like, dude, this isn't overnight, but this is 10 years of you doing what you do to get to this point. And so that's really cool. I just want this to grow at a pace where it doesn't have to necessarily be super rapid, but it's like, okay, this is something that no one else can do. And I want to do it the best. And it doesn't even matter about the price. There's a whole bunch of price ranges, whatever, but it's more about like, oh man, this is our budget. We're not sure. We're not comfortable in the spirit space. Hey, you know what? That's great. The fact that you even want to get involved in this is so amazing. I will make it work for you, and that's kind of where I love being. I don't like to dictate anything with money. I think the money comes, but the experience, you can't buy it, and that's the coolest part.
Yeah, it is super cool. Where can folks find you? Like, what have you named this? Like, where?
I haven't even named it yet. I know, it's insane. It's on our website, singlemaltdaily.com/tours. And people can actually go and start to like inquire about booking, which is great. It's also one of those things where it's like, whoa, the network that you've built up into this is actually a very big component of this, right? So I have a lot of clients that love buying luxury bottles and, don't have access like I do. So they'll come to me for gifts and things like that. I get people that want to buy $10,000 bottles as a thank you all day long.
Oh,
And,
sure.
I mean, I think exactly what I mean. You must have been hit up all the time at Suntory. And I actually meant to ask you this.
Oh my
You
God,
must have
idea.
been,
You've
my
no
God.
idea. You've no
I want to
idea.
hear this. Seriously.
No, all the time. Hit up all the time throughout my career for unique bottles. And then even going back to some of and then, talk about people wanting to give like unique gifts. I've had major founders of liquor companies and distributors come to me and say, can you get the shoe size of the CEO or founder of Suntory or of whatever? Because I want to gift them these, handmade Jordans, whatever it is. Like it goes beyond the bottle in my world, like weird stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, let me get that shoe size for you. I mean, I've had just
Are you serious?
Yeah. So, I mean, the connections are deep.
Oh,
but yeah, I've
deep.
been hit up for the past 30 years. So it's crazy. Since I've been in the industry.
God. Yeah. What's one of the coolest things you've ever received in the industry?
Oh, I don't even know. Let me think on that one. The coolest.
Yeah.
I always think that things that are just really personal and thoughtful versus, how much something may cost might be some of my most favorites. I did, and I'm an educator for the BNIC, right, out of Cognac, France, the few. And one year on my birthday, Alex Gabriel, who is the founder and owner, of Ferrand, gifted me a beautiful, and I don't have it sitting on my shelf right this minute. Actually, I have it in my storage unit right here in my house. But just a gorgeous bottle of his cognacs. It was a rare one. And he had it etched, like with lasers, whatever, etched with my name on it, my birth date on it.
Wow.
And for me, it was super special because this was a time when you didn't get bottles. Now you get them all the time, right? With your name or your signature on it or what it might be. But this was really my first experience in that. And that was well over a decade ago. It was a very long time ago. So that's one of them that I treasure. Another one I thought was really fun was I can grab the bottle. I wish that this was visual and not just audio, because I went to the Absolute Distillery years ago with my really good friend who is now passed, Chris Patino. And there was a big group of us in Simon Ford, and this is years ago. And on the bottle of Absolute that I have here at home, where the little emblem is on the very top? It's like a little silver thing. They had our faces etched into that. So I actually have my face etched into a bottle of Absolute vodka, which is so weird. But it's
what?
These are like things that are in my collection that are personal to me versus like owning a $10,000 bottle of whiskey, right? Just some really thoughtful things that brands have done or have presented to me.
That is so sick. Yeah, I think I have a lot of cool things like that. I think one of the nicest things ever was on that first trip in 2017. Do you know Maison du Whiskey in Paris? So
yes.
I don't know why the name of the bar that they own is blanking on me, but they have that cave bar that is just so iconic.
Yes. Not Candelabra. What is it called?
No, God, it's gonna crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but I know what you're thinking about. Yeah.
I'm trying to look it up too. I'm like, oh my God.
I've been there.
So yes. So their gentleman in there in 2017, he said, "What's your birth year?" And I said 1984. And he went and opened a Kurizawa in 1984 for me. I was like, oh my God, like fresh crack, wildest story ever. And then there's some cool things that have happened. Met Jerry Jones on the tarmac, and he gifted me a Dallas Cowboys Maker's Mark that I swear to you, my children, if they even dare to drink that when I'm dead, they will be paying the price for that one. That one's probably the coolest thing I have for sure. But recently, and this is really cool, a friend of mine was in a spirits company. He's now the president of Plasencia Cigars. At the time, he was with a brand that was owned by Dana White of the UFC. And he says, hey, man, do you want to go to the first ever UFC in the Sphere in Vegas? And he took me to the Sphere, had this whole experience. And then we got into these insane seats and watched the greatest night ever unfold in Vegas. So I think you and I are pretty lucky with what we get to come across in this life.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had some over the top crazy experiences, no doubt. I mean, always flown first class, always over the never unknowing what's going to happen from one thing to the next. I just want to share with you one of the craziest experiences I actually curated, because one of the programs that I had was called the Advanced Mixology and Culinary Academy outside of Chicago, where I was the first person to take bartenders around the world to distilleries.
Wow.
And I would take, which is why my hair is totally gray. If you could see, it's like, oh my God.
Oh, get out of here.
But one of the experience Pernod gave us, and it was through their absinthe at the time, was when when I arrived to Paris and I had 20 bartenders, bar owners, with me. Our transportation were motorcycles, and they took us on this crazy motorcycle ride, through Paris, and it was so wild. And, we wound up at the Moulin Rouge, and for this private absinthe tasting. From there, we got back on the motorcycles, went to the Seine River, jumped on those beautiful wooden boats, and had like some of the most luxurious champagne you've ever seen. I could just go on and on and on.
Oh my God.
Top. Wound up in a helicopter at one point. Like, it was wild. One day I'll write a book about my personal crazy ass experiences.
Helicopter. You see, like, these experiences you could never even make up. And that's what's so cool about our industry. 1,000%.
And the way that they roll the red carpet out, like they used to back in the day.
Thank you. That was what I heard was done. It was kind of like pharma back in the day. You had this unlimited budget to do really cool shit.
Yes. It was some stories I can't tell.
Yeah, exactly. Believe me, it's so funny you say that, because like there's a part of this experience that we just did on this tour, and I can't talk about it. But if you become, if you do the tour, you get to be a part of it, and it's just like, holy shit! And the minute we got to the door, they were like, no phones, no pictures, and we were like, okay, done, no problem. And you're just like, wow, you don't really know what luxury is until it like hits you in the face. And then you're like, oh my God. Yeah.
That's some really over the top stuff. It's amazing. Well, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram at Nate Gana, singlemaltdaily.com. And just find me on LinkedIn and let's have a chat.
I love it. And I want to thank you so much, Nate, for coming on Served Up today. And I would love to invite you back, once you get things really established and going, to give us an update on what you're doing. Maybe this fall, if you're hip and open to doing it. And just, I know our listeners will want to know, like, well, where is Nate today? Like, what is he doing? Where can I find out more information? So can we do that in the fall?
I would be honored. Absolutely. We've got trips lined up for October and November. I would love to come back to you and tell you about those. It would be so great.
I would love it. I know our listeners would love it too. So with
you're
that
so
said,
kind.
I just want to wish you just a ton of great health and a lot of peace, and congratulations. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. This is so amazing. I miss you so much. I'm going to come to Chicago and we're going to hang out. I will be sure to hit you up the minute I land.
I love it. Not during St. Patrick's Day.
No, absolutely not. I promise.
I'm not going near the city.
No, I don't blame you at all. No, we'll do like October, November.
That'll be great. Thank you, brother. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.